Is there an argument, though, that actually in politics personality does matter? Because the personality of the person making the decisions will influence, of course, the kind of decision that they make, and so people have got a right to know about it.
If you're ever sad enough to try reading a party's general election manifesto, you'll quickly discover that it's the perfect cure for insomnia. Politics only comes alive when it comes off the written page into the mouth of a politician, preferably the one with some personality. But let's face it, most politicians are the sort of people who can light up the House of Commons simply by walking out of it. So if you've got somebody that's slightly different, a bit more edge, a bit more spark, they actually draw people into the political process, and that actually must be a good thing.
Now let's just talk about the two leaders and their performing styles. Mrs May, I don't know whether you've been coaching her, but she's certainly taken a leaf out of your book saying, keep on repeating what you want to say.
Yes, but you can't repeat it so much that people get tired of it. Certainly the Lynton Crosby view is that right about the time when commentators and journalists are starting to sneer at a particular slogan, that's around about the time when the public is starting to absorb and receive it. But I think this time the public are getting that much more sophisticated, and they have to be very careful not to do that.
Corbyn is a man, he's been in politics a long time, but he's by and large been a rebel, and he's tended to speak to friendly audiences. Now he's meeting a wider cross-section.
Yes, he is, and he also has to cope with the fact that he's largely disassociated, detached from the rest of his parliamentary party. So whether he likes to be an individual presidential candidate or not, he's been thrust into that position. It's been a deliberate ploy by the Tories, who virtually projected Theresa May as a rock star. Theresa May and her support band, the Conservative Party.
Because they wanted to get Jeremy Corbyn out there.
Indeed, so they want to expose him as an individual.
He was pushed a lot on what wasn't in the Labour manifesto, and what was in there, did he believe in it? It's a very tricky position to be in.
He is quite difficult to pin down. When he's under pressure, suddenly his voice gets very quiet and very slow and almost disappears. And then suddenly he has that expression on his face that suggests he's having a really bad attack of indigestion. And that's when he's absolutely at his very weakest presentationally.
Not a good look for anyone, never mind a politician. What did you think of the format? Because a lot of voters were disappointed that we didn't see Theresa May go head-to-head with Jeremy Corbyn, because, of course, they do that regularly in Prime Minister's questions. Did you think this worked? Do you think we found out much about their personalities and content, which is, you know, key for a lot of voters?
Well, it was designed to be verbal combat, but as in any form of combat, either verbal or physical, it's not the first punch that does the real damage. It's the second and third punch, the follow-up questions, that are much more likely to hit the target on the chin. The audience questions were really predictable, allow them to go into pre-programmed stuff. Faisal Islam was a little bit reticent on doing his own follow-ups because of the lack of time. And unfortunately, Jeremy Paxman's 1990 style of continually heckling them with the same phrasing of the same question again and again became very old and very boring very quickly.
Who are the winners and who are the losers of this election when it comes to campaigning? Joining me now is political presentation consultant Graham Davies. Mr Davies, where did it go so wrong for Theresa May?
Well, Jeremy Corbyn couldn't have performed any better, and Theresa May couldn't have performed any worse, really. Corbyn, during every appearance that he made, was energetic, enthusiastic and engaging, whereas Theresa May had none of those ingredients whatsoever. I think that she does care very deeply about the future of the country, but at the moment, when she speaks, she doesn't have the ability to show it. And that was epitomised by that truly weapons-grade appalling speech she did yesterday outside Downing Street, where she showed the level of intensity and of sensitivity of an announcer at Euston Station telling us that a train was going to be 3 minutes late.
Well, if you were Theresa May now, would you be getting rid of your aides and finding new ones?
Well, what I would be doing, whether it involves getting rid of your aides, it actually should be getting rid of slogans. It's slogans that actually were the biggest...
They're going to come back to bite her.
They're going to come back to haunt her, not just bite her. Slogans were very old-fashioned. They came across as being very 2015, not 2017. They also were too easy to parody. You don't have to be Jimmy Carr or Oscar Wilde to change strong and stable into weak and wobbly. And also, they made her sound like a shopkeeper who was slightly out of touch and didn't know the contents of her own store. Here's some margarine. It's soft and spreadable. It's the best deal for Britain, but that's all I can tell you about it.
Do you think now she can continue, or is she on very, very shaky ground?
If she's going to continue, she does have to adjust and not evade. She can't just suddenly be as strong and as rigid and as brittle as she has been before. She has to find a way of becoming more engaging, more compassionate, and more adaptable to the circumstances. Her first instinct when she was asked questions on television during the course of the campaign was to evade, avoid, and ignore. It became a sort of disastrous triple lock for her. Instead of actually telling the questioner the information that they wanted to get at in the first sentence of the answer, she would launch into a pre-prepared speech which sounded like 2 minutes read off the Tory party website, skating across the surface and avoiding actually engaging with what the questioner wanted. And that didn't come across as just being bloody difficult. It came across as being bloody annoying.